Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Selling Greenville, your favorite real estate podcast here in Greenville, South Carolina. I'm your host, as always, Stan McCune, realtor right here in Greenville, and you can find all of my contact information in the show notes if you need to reach out to me for any of your Greenville or upstate of South Carolina real estate needs. And please, if you like the content of the show, and I hope you do because you're listening or watching, please subscribe. Whatever button you need to do. I think on YouTube there's like a little bell that you hit. On Apple Podcasts there's a subscribe or a follow button. Spotify, all the same. Make sure you subscribe. If you can leave a comment, if you're on a platform that allows that, or a rating or a review or something like that, I would appreciate that from all you guys. I talked to a lot of people that are listening to this that haven't done that. It takes you like 5 seconds. Please do that. Those are the only two things I ask of you guys. Use me as your realtor, and just support the show by just liking, subscribing, all of that. So thank you guys. I appreciate you guys listening. And today we have a special guest. This is a first for the show, over 5 years running. We have a politician from Columbia, from the State House, Stephen Frank, who, in full disclosure, is a friend of mine from many, many years back. And Stephen is serving his first term in the State House. He is my representative. And we're just going to be talking, we will talk a little bit of real estate. But obviously on this show, if you guys listen much, you know that we talk about a lot of things that pertain to Greenville because it all indirectly impacts real estate in one way or the other. And obviously what's happening politically in our state directly impacts what's happening in the upstate of South Carolina. And so Stephen is boots on the ground over there. He can share us all the dirty secrets that's happening in the graveyard in Columbia. So Stephen, welcome to the show.
Stan, thanks for having me on today. Appreciate the invite.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess we'll just kind of start high level here. What's it like running for office, specifically in the state? And what would you say it's been like just being in the South Carolina state government?
Yeah, that's a question I get often. I've grown up here, so this is my home. So to me, it's a little extra special because these are the people that I've grown up with. I've known all my life, and now I get to represent them in Columbia. So that responsibility isn't lost on me. In fact, every time I drive into the State House during session and you kind of get going into the garage and just the weight of it hits me every day. That this is it's not a just a I don't know, a fun adventure that some treat it as, or a self-serving mechanism to increase their lot in life, but really the responsibility to represent the people that are closest to me in the state government, and that hits me every day. And yes, what it's like running for office. That that was one of the most interesting experiences I've ever had.
I bet.
It wasn't something I was expecting or planning on at the time. The opportunity kind of came out of the blue, and I was asked if I'd consider doing it. Wasn't something I was looking for. I was happy. Business, good, family, kids keeping us busy, church, every sphere of life was, in my opinion, as it should be. God's been very kind to me, so it was not something I was looking for, and so I had to quickly shift gears. Thinking about that, one of the biggest. The amount of work that goes into a campaign, people talk about, but until you actually experience it, it's hard to really describe just the all the amount of time, the door knocking. It's time consuming, but it was fun. There's so many people I met that I might have passed their house every day, driving to work or taking the kids to school, whatever that route is. You pass those houses all the time, but you don't know those people. So getting out and knocking on doors, meeting so many folks in the district was a lot of fun. A lot of work, wore us out, but it was fun, and I enjoyed pretty much the whole process of it.
So you were kind of going in considered an underdog for that election, and I actually spoke to a lobbyist at one point just like asking about your race, and this person was just like, yeah, Stephen doesn't have a chance. Um, so obviously, a lot of people were wrong. What do you attribute that success to?
Well, as a Christian, I believe it's the sovereignty of God. Not to say that it's because I'm better. I think it was just that's what God intended. Um, but not to be say that in a trite sort of way, but I think overall that is the answer. But as far as specifics, what we could what we can tally on a page, I think a lot of it had to do with just being from here. I knew who my people were. I know how they think. I know what's important to them. I know their values because I've lived in this district. I grew up in this district. Um, so so being so close to it, my opponent wasn't. She's very nice, but she wasn't from here and didn't know the people wasn't as connected to them. And I think that made a huge difference.
Absolutely. So, let's talk about Colombia for a second. What would you describe as the political environment in Colombia? Obviously, it's really lopsided, right? We become a very very red state. I mean, we've kind of always been a red state, even well, not always, but
Recent
in
history.
more recent history, we've been a red. I guess in my lifetime, it feels like South Carolina has always been a red state. But what would you describe as the political climate?
I, that's an interesting question, and you just kind of touched on that, describing us as always been a red state. I would obviously we weren't that really started to change back in the 90s.
Hmm.
Um, as far as the political party affiliation, but the people haven't changed much. We've always been a very conservative people. The South in general, South Carolinians specifically, Christian culture, very conservative. The party affiliation, of course, changed back in the 90s. But I think one of the best ways to describe it, we've often been described as the a purple state. I mean, we're one of the bluest red states, and what people mean by that is the representatives in Columbia are not really representative of the people. The values are completely opposite, really. The people, the South Carolinians, are still very conservative people, but our representatives are not. Even though they might have a particular party designation as Republican, we have a Republican supermajority, but the bills that we pass are not really reflective of the values of our citizens. So that creates a whole range of issues to contend with.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess I should probably say to those I've realized in recent years that people get confused about the red versus blue thing. So an easy way to think about that is red R, Republican R. So for those that are confused, we are a very Republican state when I said we're a red state.
That's right.
Um, so let's talk about some issues here. So roads, okay? One thing that Greenville County Council has made abundantly clear is that they want the state to be the primary ones to fix the roads. And we had a penny sales tax that got voted down last year. I'm not going to ask
Mhm.
you where you stand on that. And I'm specifically not going to ask you that because I don't think it matters. Because I found out that Greenville County Council people, they told me this themselves, that some of them that publicly came out against it in private voted for it. And what that tells me is that they thought it was the best thing for the county, but it wasn't the best thing for their political ambitions. And so they had to do a little sleight of hand. And I'm sure that you didn't do that. But regardless, I just felt like I needed to say that. Need to get that off my chest. I'm sure that there are people in the state government as well doing that kind of stuff. But regardless, the one of the biggest talking points that came out of that was so many of these are state roads, and why should the county be doing what the state should be doing? And so I'm curious what your take is on that.
Yeah, you set a very good backdrop on that question. And that highlights really the conundrum that we have. So when you said, the council, county feels like the state should be responsible for them. In one sense, they are correct because the state has claimed responsibility for them. So the state should be fixing them. We have taxes allocated for roads, and they just accumulate and are not being dispersed as they should be. And there's a whole litany of reasons, why, and different people's hands in pots and wanting this and that and the other thing, rather than just focusing on fixing the roads. I think we have some systemic issues with the way everything's set up on the state level. It's very inefficient. But a lot of different bodies can point fingers at one another and say, well, it's not happening because of this committee over here or that committee over there. So on the state level, I think we need to restructure how we handle roads. I think the lieutenant governor, at least for a short period of time, could be made responsible for the roads. Lieutenant governor has a very short list of responsibilities in South Carolina. I think that would be a very logical individual or office to put in charge of the roads. But even deeper than that, back to the county council or county versus state. South Carolina state government is, I think, responsible for too many roads, too much roads. The more we can put the roads back to the counties, the more efficient it's going to be. The counties are much closer, to the people.
Yep.
They know the roads better. They know they're hearing directly from their citizens on where those potholes are, where the most dangerous curves are, et cetera, et cetera. And so the more power you can put back to the local government, the more efficient it's going to be. Doesn't mean that you don't get rid of corruption entirely. As long as you have human government, you're going to have some corruption somewhere, some favors being done. That's the unfortunate nature of human government. But you get rid of a lot of it. You reduce it greatly. So you increase your efficiency. So I think the state needs to turn over the authority on most of these roads. SCDOT should not have responsibility for as many miles as we do. It's more than most other states. So it makes us very inefficient. It makes it more expensive, and then you come into these questions. Well, we don't have the money. It's going to cost. Do we raise taxes? And nobody wants taxes raised, but they want the roads fixed. So I think we can avoid a lot of those conversations if we just shift the authority for the roads back to the counties, and give them the ability to do the maintenance and the construction. I think a lot of these issues will self-resolve.
Yeah, and I'm definitely in agreement with you on that. I have seen the backlog of roads that the DOT has. I mean, and every year it gets more expensive, right? So it's not, if there is an 8-year backlog to fix, a handful of roads out here, well, that backlog, 8 years is going to turn into 10 years, is going to turn into 12 years very
That's
quickly
right.
because everything keeps getting more expensive. And so, I'm with you. I'm in favor of county council figuring out a way to do it. But I don't think that that's going to happen. Not with the current makeup of Greenville County Council.
Not with the current makeup, not with the current tools that they have. If we really need action from the state first. The legislature needs to act and restructure DOT, and then turn control back to the counties, because you really create one bottleneck or one funnel that gets bottlenecked instead of having 46. We have 46 counties. You could have 46 different bodies handling local road issues.
Mhm.
And some of them are going to get it wrong because that's just but you have more opportunity for success
Is
when
there
you have
any
46.
is there any appetite in Columbia for this? Like, is there any movement, or is this just something that is kind of being talked about, but it's probably not going to go anywhere?
There's appetite, and I've had a lot of private conversations about this. A lot of it's there's so many issues, and we have such a short legislative season that it's hard to get big stuff done.
It's amazing
Uh,
how short the session is. It's incredible.
It's very short, and I'm not advocating for extending it. I think it's good that it's short.
Sure.
It's better for the citizens the less we're in session. In my opinion. Um, I think next year you'll likely see more action on this, being that it is an election year, and this is a big topic. As I door knocked, it was the number one topic as I talked to people in my primary election. Um, and that's the same. That's not unique to me. That's across the board. So I think you're going to see more appetite next year. I'm hoping so. Coming back in January and maybe have some more desire to move on this issue.
What I this is getting a little bit off topic, but I'm just going to throw this out there. I am very much in favor that our state should legalize gambling, specifically sports gambling, and maybe expand, loosen up a little bit on the cannabis related kind of stuff and bring in tax revenue from that because people are sports gambling. It's really easy to bypass the current rules that are in place. Like everyone's doing it. It's just that the state we have all these other states in the U.S. that are bringing in tax revenue and quite a bit of it from people gambling on sports. It's a booming industry, but I don't hear anyone talking about that. And it's just like, why don't we like nobody wants taxes raised? Why don't we do that and then just say all of this money is going towards the roads?
There's been a lot of conversation about that, but it was a big topic this last session about legalizing gambling. And in one sense, I'm with you as far as I think people should be free to waste their money however they see fit. Right. I don't think it's the government's responsibility to tell you how you can spend your money or
Right.
not. But the solutions that were being presented were very much big government solutions for specific reasons of raising taxes and control and authority, and it wasn't about freedom and liberty for citizens. So the solutions I couldn't get behind. As far as needing to raise more tax revenue, I think the better focus of rather than figuring out how much more money we can raise in different sources of tax revenue is figuring out how we can shrink the size and scope of our government. Our government's just way too big, and we don't need it to be this parental, in our lives. So
Sure.
I think that'd be a better route to go first is see
Hmm.
how much we can cut and cut, and streamline and be more efficient and reduce the size and scope of government, then see if we need to raise more revenue. I have a feeling we won't need to look for more sources of revenue at that point.
Okay. Interesting. So, pivoting from the roads issue, which those, I've got a lot of listeners and watchers on YouTube that don't know a ton about Greenville. So, I will say this. I've talked to people from other states that come here and they're like, I don't see any problem with the roads. And then you get on the flip side, you get some people that come from other states that they're just like, man, there's potholes everywhere. So, when we talk about the roads, that's the issue there. Now, the thing that got the most publicity, I feel like this session was the tort reform. And for those that don't know, a big aspect of that, and Stephen, for those that don't know, has an insurance background. He works in insurance. Very qualified person to speak on tort reform and just everything related to the insurance industry. Um, there were a lot of tort problems and all of that related to all these frivolous lawsuits that were happening and double jeopardy esque kind of situations, specifically with bars and establishments that served alcohol that were being made. My understanding is multiple different restaurants could be essentially 100% liable for a criminal act that's performed by a drunk person. Even if one of them, gave him a beer at 4 p.m. and the other one gave him, you know, 10 Irish car bombs at 10 p.m., they were both equally liable, right? So that's
Right.
obviously not a just system. And that unjust system created these liquor liability insurance rates to skyrocket, which then the past 2 years, I mean, I don't know how many restaurants have gone out of business, bars have gone out of business, whatnot. They've directly identified that liquor liability as the reason why they had to do that. So, with all of that backdrop, for those that don't know, we did pass tort reform in the House, well, in the entire government. The governor signed off on it, and I'm curious what your thoughts are on it. Good, bad, ugly, just anything you have to say about it.
We passed nominal tort reform. We took barely a half step forward so that politicians could go back to their districts and tell their citizens that they did something to stand up and protect small businesses. We passed nothing that's going to amount to any meaningful change or any reduction in premiums. And I hate to say that, but it's just not going to. We did not address the real issues of what are driving these rate increases, and it's the litigious nature of our state. As long as the carriers are threatened by by these ridiculous lawsuits, they can't write business here. You'll have a carrier take in, you know, even $100,000 of premium, but if they are going to get hit with $1 million lawsuits over and over and over, they can't sustain that business model,
Of course.
right? So it doesn't matter how much we do until we actually go all the way and fix the problem. Going halfway doesn't result in anything at all because the carriers can't until the carriers can comfortably come back and write business and do it profitably. We don't fix the problem, and forcing them to do it isn't going to help. We can't force them to go out of business.
Yeah.
If you take in, I had an account several years ago. We took in 15,000 of premium. They'd gone up from 5 to 15. It was a big jump, and great little establishment. They'd never had an issue before. And then they had a claim where it wasn't their fault. We had video footage and we had the receipts from the POS system. We knew how much we had served this customer. We watched on the exterior footage of that car drive away in a perfectly straight line, no issues at all. Go to another bar, continue drinking, picked up a couple passengers. The driver ended up getting in a wreck later, passing away. The passenger sued. It took over a year for this. We had an open claim, but where I'm going with this, that the carrier at that time took in $15,000, and before there was a judgment or a lawsuit, even or any kind of payout or damages, the cost of the carrier was over $80,000 because they had to hire investigators, they had to hire outside counsel, and for that length of time, it ballooned. So before they had even had a lawsuit to look at, the cost to them of this incident was several times greater than the premium they took in. They can't sustain it. And that's one thing that makes this issue hard to even qualify or quantify, is because there's no real central database of that to see, and it's very nebulous to get down to, well, what is the true cost of all this? So it's easy to manipulate numbers. The attorneys are great at doing that, and trying to say, oh, well, this isn't really that big of a deal. Maybe just raise the price of your beers a little bit.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But what we've done is the lawyer legislators have created a pot of gold in Columbia, and they paved the road to get to it, and they are guarding that with their lives. Hundreds of millions of dollars a year in attorney's fees that are being raked in on this stuff. And it's really just a massive grift. But they're very powerful. It's a lot of money, and they're going to fight tooth and nail to keep that pot of gold. So until we can get serious and really have the citizens put the pressure on the legislature, we're not going to see anything meaningful. So the bill that we passed is all performative, and really, really disappointing.
Do you think that it's going to kind of be like all right, we did it, we're done, move on, or do you think that there's going to be pushes in future session to try to actually improve it?
That's the hope of the other side, is that to just be able to wring their hands free of it and say, well, we tried, we did something, we passed a bill, we fixed tort reform, and so that's the hope, is to not have to deal with it. But I'm not going to let it go. and my clients and the citizens of South Carolina aren't going to let it go. So I'm hoping to bring that fight back up in January.
Is there more appetite in the House or in the Senate for this type of thing? Because I know some senators that were not super excited about it either.
Yeah, I mean, we got loyal legislators in both chambers,
Yeah.
and so it's hard to say which chamber has more appetite for it than the other. The thought this time was that the Senate, started in the Senate and then the House would follow along. That was not true, and I was saying that from the beginning. It's not true. That's what it was. That's the strategy that was attempted, and it didn't really work. In fact, the bill that was passed, they passed the bill that didn't really even go through the full committee process. They used some maneuvering, some legislative maneuvering, and basically took another bill that had nothing to do with anything court reform related, and they on the floor they used an amendment and did a strike and replace amendment. Basically, they just gutted this other bill and inserted something else into it. It was last minute. It was a backroom compromise between the House and Senate leadership and so forth, and so it didn't even go through the full committee process. And then they rushed it through, rammed it through. I tried raising a 24-hour rule on it was overridden. We had very little input on it, which is interesting because you know some of those same legislators really harped on the legislative process. The committee process is so important, and that is where the debate should happen. We shouldn't be wasting time on the floor.
Right.
So they bypassed their whole process
Yeah.
entirely. Struck and replaced this, and then to the point that they even had to then amend the title of the bill to make it conform to the bill itself. So
Unbelievable.
that was the tort reform bill.
Yeah. Well, not a lot of positives there, but that was kind of what I expected for you to say, being an insurance person and not an attorney.
That's
Not
right.
but yeah, no, we've got. I definitely feel like we have a major problem with attorneys. I mean, it's nationwide, but it definitely feels like in the state of South Carolina, um, they are more so than some other states definitely running the show.
A lot of
Uh,
power. In fact, the legislature picks the judges in South Carolina. I think most people know that by now. So we have the attorneys basically picking the judges that they or their friends or their partners or their family members are going to practice in front of.
you know, the cycle of life and corruption goes round and round.
Indeed, it does.
So let's talk about specific real estate kind of stuff. So, and I don't have a specific question. Obviously, housing affordability is on a lot of people's minds. There simultaneously there's very heavy NIMBYism or anti-development sentiment. Is anything that would directly be real estate, per directly pertinent to real estate being discussed in Columbia right now?
I don't know about directly as far as a particular bill that would, specifically have some impact or create some shockwave for real estate specifically. But the way I see the issue with overdevelopment, as some might call it, or housing affordability, and that's a broad topic. That's not just low income folks. That's a lot of natives can't afford to buy homes in the neighborhoods they grew up in. And so you've got other than issues and conversations that come around that. Um, what I see, and I've really clearly come to see as one of the central issues affecting all of this, is the corporate welfare state that we have. Um, the mantra constantly repeated is jobs, jobs, jobs. We got to create more jobs. Um, but it's a little bit of a head scratch because our people have jobs. We don't really have an issue of not being able to find jobs. There's plenty of jobs all over the place.
Sure.
Um, and so what I've realized is, we've got this Republican controlled legislature government Um, and because but they have a spending problem, Stan. They want to spend, spend, spend. We're all, the governor's, state of the state address was all, basically there wasn't a problem he couldn't fix as long as we gave enough money to do it.
That's right.
Uh, and so we got a spending problem. And rather than being fiscally conservative, we keep spending, but you got to pay for that somehow. And then that's where the bit of the conundrum appears, is because we're Republicans with a spending problem. The solution sounds natural to raise taxes, but we can't do that because we're Republicans, and Republicans don't raise taxes ever. Otherwise, you ain't a Republican.
Right.
So that's a rock and a hard place, right? So the solution then is, well, since we can't raise taxes, we're going to increase the tax base. So we're not going to increase the tax rate. We're going to increase the tax base. And that's why we have this overdevelopment, this corporate welfare state that we've found. I mean, heck, we gave $1.3 billion to Scout Motors, and not just in incentives. We gave them hundreds of millions of dollars out of the Treasury. And we just let them rob us blind. All for the sake of creating jobs. But like I started answering, we don't have a jobs problem. So who are these jobs for? Well, these jobs are for all the people that we need to move here to increase the tax base. These jobs are for everybody else. And I'm not against growth. I'm a capitalist through and through. I am all for growth and progress, but it needs to be market driven. It needs to be natural. And when you have the government central planning, picking winners and losers, we're creating this atmosphere where, for some people in a microcosm, it's great. If you own property, you own land, and you're thinking about selling it, or you're retiring, or you're at a point of maybe offloading that, and the prices are skyrocketing, you're going to make a lot of money. That's good for you. Okay. But that's a microcosm. That's looking very specifically at that. But when you zoom out, you're creating these issues where natives can't even afford to live in their neighborhoods anymore. Prices are skyrocketing. So it's government spending that creates inflation. We're doing it on the state level by driving all these jobs. Again, we should be pro-business, but that doesn't mean all these incentives for business.
Sure.
If businesses want to come here because we have a great work ethic, we have a great environment, we have a good climate, we have good natural resources. Those are all legitimate reasons for a business to come here and thrive. But giving them money from the government is not a good way to do that. It's central planning. That's Marxism. It's communism. It's antithetical to what we would hold as conservatives.
Sure.
So that this is a very long roundabout answer talking about real estate, but that's where I see the biggest impact is we're keeping the foot on the gas. We're keeping this red hot, and that's going to keep driving up prices for a while. For some people, that's good. They like to see those prices going up, but that's going to have consequences in a lot of other areas, and I think that's going to be very painful in the long run.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you've got, to your point, we've got government pressure on. We've got supply side and demand side pressure, right? So we've got, particularly when it comes to real estate. So on the demand side, you just described it, where they're creating jobs, perhaps artificially, at least, via government spending. They're helping to subsidize creating jobs that are then bringing in outsiders that then need housing. And then that's happening on the state level. It's happening on the county level as well. But then you've got specifically all the counties around here. Spartanburg, not as much, but Spartanburg eventually will head in that direction as well, I'm sure, that are basically saying no more housing. We don't want to build any housing. So
Right.
then you've got a supply side problem as well. So you're creating all this demand for housing on the government and then suppressing all the supply. What could go wrong?
What could go wrong? And that's a very unfair position to put county governments in
Sure.
and other municipalities. It's really unfair to put them, because that's a conundrum that I don't want to be caught in. Of, well, I understand. I know that I'm tired of seeing every piece of farmland and get developed and every tree get cut down.
Sure.
Again, not hating progress and development, but it seems so much, and it's like, gosh, we can't even hardly breathe. The impact on infrastructure. So, but at the same time, how do you balance that with property rights? well, if you own a piece of property, you ought to be able to do with it whatever you please because it belongs to you. That's nature, liberty, and freedom and rights. So this is a very unfair position that we're putting our county governments in of trying to balance property rights, individual rights with all this overdevelopment, and it's putting a legitimate strain on. You talk about roads, puts a legitimate strain on the roads and the rest of the infrastructure and grid and everything. So I'm very thankful I'm in Columbia, not on county council right now.
Yeah, no doubt. They have some difficult decisions that are very personal to some people that they have to make. Um, I'm curious. I've just got a couple more questions here because I know you're busy. What sort of influence do you feel or that do you hear about from lobbyists and whatnot in Colombia? Obviously, we've talked about the attorney cycle of life that happens over there, but in terms of influence from lobbyists, I know that we hear people talk about that a lot. I'm curious what actually is happening.
I'm not I'm not anti-lobbyist necessarily. They exist for a reason.
Yep.
And there's some legitimate, I think, some legitimate place for a lobbyist. Um, some of them I've gotten to know well and are good people, and they do good work and honest work, as much as government work can be honest.
Right.
Um, and they can be very useful allies, especially like in tort reform, because they have relationships with different industry groups and associations, and we can find ways to work together. But we're lobbying.
I assume, in these situations, they can help to provide data and help to provide perhaps to even fund studies or to, you know, provide studies, things of that nature. That
Correct.
not all of the, like, I personally know lobbyists. And so I can speak to this as well. It's not, they're not coming up to your most of them are not, coming to your office and sliding you a check and saying, "Hey, make sure this bill goes through."
Correct. Not That's not most of it, and not with me. I think I've pretty well made my position clear in Columbia, and so I don't. That does happen though. Okay,
Sure.
that does happen.
Yep.
I know that it happens. I've seen it happen, and not the check actually.
It's just not exclusively what happens.
Correct. It's not the only way that lobbying works. Um, but a lot of times lobbyists, they are paid by a particular industry and industries that want to protect themselves. And I'm not a protectionist. I will work. I want to help industries insofar as creating a free market environment for them to thrive. But passing legislation to maybe create a barrier of entry that excludes competition and protects only their members. That happens a lot. There's a lot of bills that want to get filed for those reasons, and so those might create a little friction between me and some of the lobbyists on those fronts. But there's plenty of room to work together because they've got relationships. You mentioned studies, and relationships are key. They might have relationships with some of the business owners in their professional organization that they represent
Hmm.
that are very, very helpful to be able to go and just have a conversation and ask the impact of maybe even tort reform. How's this impacting your business? What have you seen? Whereas I might not have those relationships off the bat. So there is value that they can bring. For sure, it's not all nefarious.
Sure, sure. So moving on from that, a couple of just high picture, just what your general sense is, high level kind of thing. What kind of legislative priorities do you have moving forward? Are you wanting to stay in Columbia kind of long term? I guess we'll start with that. Like, do you see this as something where you'd like to be there for a few years, or is it just kind of like maybe, a 1 or 2 term thing or a feel it out?
Kind of feeling it out. I don't see it as necessarily a long term sort of thing. Maybe a handful of terms, but we evaluate that. Even now, is do I want to run for reelection or not? I think
Sure.
so. We'll make that decision as a family. Just the
Yep.
kids are growing up, so that's my first priority. There'll always be somebody who can sit in this seat and cast a vote. And there's good people that can do that. I enjoy it. So I think I'd like to stick around for a couple terms. As far as staying in Columbia, I'm not trying to, this isn't a stepping stone for me. Many see these positions as stepping stones, maybe to a higher office, maybe governor or even Congress or a federal position or appointment. I have no ambition like that. This to me is where the battle is fought. This is of great importance to me. So I'm not trying to get somewhere else through this channel. This to me is a destination of its own, and I'm enjoying it. But it's not. I don't feel like it's a lifelong calling necessarily
Sure.
either.
I will say, with all the mixed opinions on our governor, one thing that I have appreciated is that once he got there, it wasn't a stepping stone for him. It was like so many governors are angling for something else, and our previous governor was certainly of that mindset.
Oh,
Um,
still is.
yeah, yeah, still is. But I do appreciate that Governor McMaster, for some of his shortcomings, he has been focused on the state and hasn't been going out to California to see the wildfires and random things like that that don't help South Carolinians.
That's right. McMaster, and I pick on him a lot, and I call him out constantly on social. Well, not as much recently, but I've taken my opportunities to do that. But they're not personal attacks. I don't dislike the man personally. And to your point, he is a South Carolinian, and he loves this state and he loves his people. We have completely different philosophies on how to best help the people of South Carolina. Completely, they are opposing ideologies. But I don't dislike the man personally, and I've had good conversations with him at the mansion, around the state house. He's gracious, he's cordial, and he does love. I think he genuinely loves the people of South Carolina. Misguided as he may be, that I've agree with your appreciation of him staying here and focusing on the people here, and not using it as a stepping stone.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's assume that you do get a couple of terms, maybe more. What would be your legislative priorities currently? We're recording this in July 2025.
Yeah, so it's somewhat multifaceted. So I do serve on the Education and Public Works Committee in the House. So that the legislation that goes through there is naturally of importance to me because that's what I'm working on in committee and subcommittee. And and being a homeschool parent, that education is just naturally important to me. So I'm drawn to that. And that will remain a priority just because of the job that's assigned to me there. As far as other personal endeavors or passions, the tort reform is huge. Was long before I got elected, so that's going to stay of high importance until we fix that problem. And then the Make America Healthy Again agenda has been of growing importance to me. I've gotten very plugged in with RFK Jr. and his team in Washington, and they've been very helpful in helping with state level policy and guidance. That we have a very sick population. We have a lot of people on Medicaid. The a very unhealthy population. Childhood obesity is rising here as it is in many places, and so we got to take a really good look, especially that's our future.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
not just the people. It's the you talk about expense of the state. It's very expensive to care for sick people, and so the Make America Healthy Again agenda and applying that to South Carolina. We've got a project called Healthy and Free SC that'll launch publicly hopefully this fall. Got a lot of legislators very interested in working together. And we've already passed some legislation. We passed out of the House. We passed a healthy school lunch bill. It doesn't go as far as I'd like to, but it does a good job of starting to clean up a lot of the school lunches and setting a standard to getting rid of some of the food dyes and some of the other ingredients that contribute to long-term sickness. So that was I thought that was a good bill. We got that passed out of the House. The Senate will take that up when we return. We've got a SNAP bill filed to get rid of candy and Coke off of SNAP benefits. That's I think most people by now have heard that a lot of states are getting those waivers from the USDA to get rid of SNAP is a USDA program, so we have to get permission to remove stuff from it. But the USDA secretary has been very quick to respond to all those waivers. So my bill that's in the House will direct the state to apply for the waiver is essentially the mechanism. So that'll move in January. I've got assurance from the committee chairman that that'll be a quick move there and get it over to the Senate so they can pass out of there, make it law in South Carolina. So the whole MAHA platform agenda is a big passion of mine, and seeing what we can do, because I think that's just if we have a short window of opportunity. We have really a generational opportunity to fix things and change the direction that we're going in. And I think we need to capitalize on the opportunity we have right now.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's great. All right, last question. Is there anything that excites you? We've talked a lot about the negative things. Is there, and I actually had a question on here that was, is there anything that concerns you about the direction of our government? I think we've pretty much well gone through that. Is there anything that excites you about the direction of our state government? And we'll end on that positive note.
Yeah, well, what I was just talking about, the whole Maha stuff, it's bipartisan. You know, it crosses party lines. Democrat kids are just as sick as the Republican kids. You know, it affects everybody, and so it's brought some unity to that regard, and that I am excited about, because that does change the direction as a state, and there's a big appetite for that right now. No pun intended. Um, so I'm and not just in the legislature, but in some of the other agencies. I've had great conversations with other agency directors who are excited to implement stuff, and so they're looking at what they can do just on their own, and then taking a look at what they might need legislative direction on, and so being able to collaborate with agency directors and other agencies who are administering these various programs and so forth, meeting with nutrition directors at schools and high schools, understanding that better. We've got a lot of momentum there. I'm very, very excited about that. School choice is moving. I think that opens the door for a lot of freedom and opportunity for folks. So there's a lot to be excited about.
Can you explain what the state's doing on the school choice initiative, just real quick?
So we could probably take a whole podcast for this.
Yeah. Give us the executive summary.
Yeah, we passed a bill out of the House, a school choice bill that expands school choice some. And it's kind of a phase-in type of a bill. It wasn't my preference, but where I've landed on the school choice topic is I'm really an all of the above legislator. So if it's school choice, there's different ways to do school choice, and everybody's got their opinion on how it should be done. Where we tend to agree is that something it should be done, right? So if we can get legislation that is going to move and it's going to expand school choice, no matter how much, I'm generally going to get behind it. What I'd like to see is more of a tax credit model, to where the parents really are in charge of that, and we have a bill in there for tax credits for school choice, and basically the requirement is, as long as you don't send your kids to government school, you get a certain amount of tax credit, a refundable tax credit on your state income tax. And so you'd file your tax return, and if you check a box that you do not send your kids to public school, as long as that's true, you get a certain amount of money. I think that bill is it's either $5,000 or $7,000 per kid. So then that allows those parents to take that money and direct it, whether it's to homeschooling or to private school, or I think you'll have other models pop up, different micro schools. You've got so many people who can educate children. So I think that model gives you a bigger. I think it's more of a free market approach. As long as I know there's still government money, tax money involved, but that's really you're getting back money that you've put in. You're really just getting back some of your taxes.
Yeah.
And we pay taxes in so many different ways. It's not just income tax. We've got sales tax. You've got, if you own a boat, you're paying property tax on that. If you have a fishing license, you've paid a tax to get a fishing license. So I think it's a pretty fair system, and get that money back, and then direct your kids' education as you see fit. That's my preference. I'm hoping to get some traction on that. We'll see what everybody else thinks about it, but there's a number of efforts made, and the momentum's growing. So I think over the next several sessions, we're going to see a lot more progress there.
Fantastic. Well, Stephen, it's been a great interview. Thank you so much for being a gracious host and coming on. Where should if the people want to find you, and I'll put your contact information in the show notes, but for those that don't go to the show notes, where can they find how to contact you, or find social media updates or whatever you want to share?
Yeah, my website is votestephenfrank.com. I've got links to both Facebook and X. I'm on both platforms. X is more exciting, so if you want to have a little more fun, then find me on X. If you just want some general updates, Facebook is probably your place to go. Both of those there. Emails is on the website as well, Stephen@votestephenfrank.com, and my phone number will be there. So people are free to email, call, text, whatever's convenient. Happy to reply any way I'm contacted.
All right. Awesome. Stephen, thank you so much. Thank you to the listeners for listening. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, review, rate, all of those good things. And please, my contact information will be in the show notes alongside Stephen's. You can also reach out to me for any of your local real estate needs. Thank you guys for listening, and we will talk again next time.